Zach said yesterday that the plan is to bring in competition for Drew. When you went back and looked at his season, what was your review of his season this year for you guys?
Well, I think that he got thrust into a role to play right away. After not playing for a couple years, after not playing his first year out of college, I thought he came in and was solid to start with. I think the level of consistency's got to keep improving. I do believe that we'll bring in competition for that spot. I don't think that spot's completely settled in my mind yet. But all in all, I thought that he did a good job in certain situations, getting the ball down the field. I can point to a couple punts. He had a really big one in the New England game. He had a big one in the Tampa game. He had several good punts at opportune times for us. I think there was one in the Baltimore game, maybe two, that was an important one. They're late. But I still think that we want to try to improve our team, and if that means Drew's a part of it, then he's going to have to win the job again.
What happened on the final punt in Kansas City? What do you kind of just make of that play with the way it went down?
Well, unfortunately, we got stuck in a lot of spots in that Kansas City game where they were in fourth and longs, where they could double vice us. We haven't faced a whole lot of double vice where both of our gunners are doubled. We didn't get off the line of scrimmage great. We had a couple guys that were out of their field lanes, frankly. I don't think the punt was exactly the punt we were looking for. It was more down the middle of the field, and it was lower than what we really wanted. And we just didn't do a good job of covering it up. We didn't stay in our lanes. It's difficult with maybe the height of the punt. It's difficult for us to defeat blocks fast enough to get back over the top and get in the proper leverage positions. We did a poor job of that, and it cost us big time.
So what are you going to be looking for when you evaluate this punting class and draft class, and even the free agents? Anybody?
Yeah, I think we're looking for somebody that's consistent. First and foremost, I think that's the true measure of a specialist, especially a punter or a kicker, is the consistency. Obviously, our climate and our weather conditions figure into that too. Sometimes it's more difficult to take somebody or have somebody come here that's played in the South or played in warm weather climates a lot. We got to. That's why I've kind of always leaned to not necessarily local guys. Been very unique. We've had our last two punters are from Cincinnati. I mean, that's just kind of fallen that way. But I think we're also looking for somebody that can get the ball up in the air, with a level of hang time that's acceptable for me. So those are a couple of big traits. Obviously, they've got to mesh well with Evan too. I thought Drew did a really good job of coming in here and holding for Evan the whole year. It was a competition with him and Kevin, with Drew and Kevin coming out of camp. I tracked, as I stated back at the end of training camp, I tracked every hold, every kick that Evan had. Every snap. We had two different snappers. There was zero difference between any of them. So I thought Drew did a really good job coming in and holding. But I also got to analyze, that fact too, is how do the personalities mesh with what we have already in Cal and Evan, and that's a big part of it too.
And you've talked about Drew took about a year to kind of get to learning how to hold, maybe that practice squad here. How much would you have to have somebody who can hit the ground running if you're going to have a true competition that can hold from get-go?
Well, that's going to it'll be a big part of the evaluation for me. Is that's going to happen fast? It's got to be very accelerated. I think sometimes it's, even though Drew held in college, it's a little different. For us, the operation's quicker, it's faster, and just because they did it in college don't mean they do it at a level that's acceptable for us. And so whoever that is, that's certainly going to be a big. It's a considerable portion of the evaluation.
Did you see an improvement from Evan between the regular season and the postseason? Hit all of his field goals, and missed just the one extra?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask Evan, I think that he's probably a little disappointed in his performance overall. For the whole season. I could look at it in a big picture point. I think if you remember a year ago that he got off to a little bit of a shaky start in 2021. He had a couple game winners, and he missed. He had a stretcher. He missed a few, but he really came on in the playoffs. And I think that's a result of being comfortable with and getting accustomed to playing with Clark and Kevin. And I think he was really, really confident down the stretch. And then, we tried to keep that together as much as we could at the beginning of the season. Then Clark gets hurt, so next thing you know, a third of the puzzle is changed. And then halfway through the season, we make a change at punter. So now the second third of that puzzle is all changed. So I thought he did a good job, for the most part, of adapting and trying to get up to speed with those guys as fast as he could. But it's just a little different, when you. It'd be like a quarterback when you take away his center and then you take away a couple of his receivers. It takes some time to develop. And so I think he was hitting the ball okay. I still think if you ask him that he'd be a little disappointed in his overall performance and what his expectation was.
What are your thoughts been on the last two postseason losses you guys to the Bowl, the AFC Championship game, punting?
So you have to speak up a little bit. I can't. You got to scoot up. You're all right. You're all right.
The punting situation, what are your thoughts about the punting in the Super Bowl game, the AFC Championship game, and is there maybe a level of frustration about it not being what you would like in those key games and key situations?
Well, certainly. I think we take a great deal of pride in the way we play special teams and the way we have over my time there. And obviously I'm directly involved with those positions. And, I think it could have been better in both situations. It was a direct factor, certainly in the AFC Championship game. I think it hit us at an inopportune time, when that play was made. And but I think you have to evaluate too the part that the exposure that you put your team to sometimes, and eventually, if you don't do the things the way that we always want them done, eventually it comes back and to bite you, and it certainly did for us. So I think it certainly needs to be better. It doesn't matter whether it's the AFC Championship game or whether it's the first game of the year, or it all feels the same. I know the level is a little different, but I have to treat it the same.
Where do you feel like you're at with returner? Is that something that you want to really explore this offseason in both punt and kick?
Yeah, I mean, Trent Trent had a very good year for us as a punt returner. I think any coach is always looking for the big play, looking for somebody to score. But I think the most important part is we maintain possession of the ball. That's the number one goal of the returner. I always tell the returners that the only goal that you got at the end of the play, the only objective you got at the end of the play is make sure you hand the ball to the official, which means we've got possession of it. And it's no secret we put the ball on the ground a couple times. I think we lost one, but again, it's still what you're exposing the rest of your team to. The ball was on the ground a couple times, and I think that that's something we got to stay away from. But I think Trent had a career year. I think he had one of the better years of his career, and it was certainly better than the production was better than what it was in 2021. So I'm happy about that part. But we also have to see what's the fit. What's the most efficient fit for our team, and how can we get the most out of those positions? We've only got 48 spots can be active on game days, and how do we maximize the use of the whole roster? I think on kickoff return, obviously we haven't quite been the same since we lost Brandon Wilson a couple years ago in 2021. Brandon was a dynamic player for us. He was one of the top guys in the league, and we've had kind of a plethora of guys. And I think that kind of goes as your roster goes, who we can get active and who we don't have access to. Chris obviously finished our year as the kickoff returner last year in 2021. He started off the year with a bang, in the preseason. He made a couple plays, and he's dealt with some injury issues. And frankly, we like I said before, we tried to maximize the roster, and so sometimes that means he's inactive, and so we kind of had to make a transition to Travion. And Travion is somebody who did it a little bit in college, but he never really done it, on a full-time basis. And so again, I'm just looking to find the best guy that's going to give our team the best chance to win field position, but it's got to fit within our roster. That's probably gone over some change over time for us. It allows us to fit together, and so the next couple of weeks, I think this free agent evaluation period through the draft evaluation period is going to be a critical spot for us to find a guy who can hopefully do both.
How are the prospects, the punters in this year's class compared to last year? I think last year was pretty.
I think
good
last
record.
year was exceptional.
Right.
Last year was an exceptional class, probably one of the best classes,
Right.
Ever. I think that's the one unique part about. It's a good part about playing later in the season as we have the last couple of years. I'm probably a little behind where I normally am at this point. I've still looked at all of them. I'm further along this year than I am last year for a lot of reasons.
Is it as deep or no?
I'll get a better feel for that when I see these guys punt live on Friday, but just looking at it in general, I don't know that it's quite as deep as it was last year, but I think last year was an exceptional. Last year was an exception.
Coach Calry signing the 1-year deal, do you see him being the guy at long snapper? Do you anticipate maybe some competition?
Yeah, I think that's something we'll continue to talk about. I thought Cal did a good job, though. I mean, he's the only snapper on our roster right now. But I thought he came in a tough spot too, and as a rookie snapper, everybody when they see the rookie snapper, they try to take advantage of him. They try to come after him. He saw a variety of rush looks and different things, and I thought he came through it pretty darn good. Cal's a guy that being there for his team and excelling at his position. His position is very, very, very important to him. And I think he'll just continue to improve. His biggest jump will come between his first year and second year because now he really knows what to expect.
Could you see Clark coming back to compete?
I don't know that that's going to be the case. I think that Clark's not under contract. He's a free agent. And I think that, with both Clark and Kevin, I've stated so many times that I have the utmost respect for those two guys, being with them for 14 years, 13, 14 years, whatever it's been. I've been through a lot of wars with those two guys. And like it is with anything, at some point, your Father Time takes over and it becomes, less likely that they'll be back. And that may be the case with that.
Going back to last year's punt class, is Matt Areza an option at all, or is he untouchable?
Well, I think there has to be some more clarity as to what his situation is. And it's not something I've really dove into a lot. It's something we, could potentially talk about and to see what the level of comfort is with that. But I think there's a lot of questions that got to be answered before he becomes even a factor in that regard.
Good.
Darrin, thank you much.
Gotcha.
Thanks.